Did you know World War I started because of a sandwich? A strange fact, but true. You see, it was in June of 1914 when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated in Sarajevo, an event that lit the fuse of the Great War. The assassin, Gavrilo Princip, had actually given up on his mission and was sitting at a cafe, eating a sandwich, when the Archduke's car happened to pass by. Seizing the opportunity, Princip fired the shots that would change the world. Europe at the time was a powder keg. Nations were entangled in a complex web of alliances and rivalries, with tensions simmering just beneath the surface. The assassination of Ferdinand was the spark that ignited those tensions, and the web of alliances ensured that the conflict would not be confined to Austria and Serbia alone. Countries began taking sides, mobilizing their armies, and preparing for battle. And just like that, the world was at war. Imagine living in a muddy ditch for months, even years. That was the reality for soldiers in World War I. In the heart of the battlefield, a network of narrow passageways, known as trenches, stretched across miles and miles, offering a crude form of protection from the relentless onslaught of bullets and shells. These trenches were anything but comfortable. Deep in the earth, they were often waterlogged, turning the ground underfoot into a quagmire of mud. The soldiers shared this space with rats and lice, while the stench of rot and decay hung heavy in the air. Life in the trenches was a test of endurance. The days were filled with monotony, punctuated by moments of sheer terror during attacks. The soldiers had to contend with the constant threat of death from enemy fire, disease, or even just the harsh elements. The physical toll was immense, but the psychological impact was arguably even more profound. World War I saw the advent of modern warfare. This transformative period hurled us into a new era of combat, introducing technologies that forever changed the nature of warfare. Among these were tanks, an innovation that brought a new dimension to ground battles. These steel beasts, trudging through the muddy trenches, were impervious to most traditional weapons, providing a critical advantage in the field. Their ability to navigate difficult terrains and withstand heavy gunfire revolutionized ground offensives, shifting the dynamics of warfare. Next came the machine guns, a weapon that significantly increased the rate of fire. These were not the handheld types we're familiar with today, but hefty pieces of machinery that required several men to operate. With the ability to fire hundreds of rounds per minute, they drastically amplified the lethality of battles, transforming them into scenes of unprecedented destruction. Then there were chemical weapons, a sinister addition to the wartime arsenal. These insidious tools of war introduced a horrifyingly new aspect of combat, the ability to attack unseen from a distance with deadly gases. Soldiers now had to fear not only bullets and shells, but also the very air they breathed. With the introduction of these new technologies, the war became even more deadly. This was the dawn of modern warfare, a time when the tools of destruction evolved faster than our understanding of their devastating potential. While soldiers fought on the front lines, civilians back home played a crucial role in the war effort. The impact of the Great War stretched far beyond the trenches, reaching into the very heart of towns and cities across the world. Everyday life was transformed. Food and fuel were in short supply, leading to rationing. People had to make do with less, and every scrap of food or piece of coal was precious. But this shared hardship fostered a sense of unity and resilience. Meanwhile, propaganda became a powerful tool. Governments used it to maintain morale, to encourage men to enlist, and to persuade the public to support the war effort in any way they could. Posters, newspapers, and films painted a picture of a just and necessary war, one that required the full commitment of every citizen. Perhaps one of the most significant changes was the surge of women entering the workforce. With men away at war, women stepped in to fill the labor gap. They worked in factories, on farms, in offices, roles traditionally held by men. This shift not only powered the war effort, but also sparked a social revolution that began to redefine gender roles. The war was not just fought on the battlefields, but in factories, homes, and fields across the world. It was a war that touched every life, and a war that changed the world forever. After 4 long years of conflict, the war finally came to an end. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918 marked the signing of the Armistice, a momentous event that signified the cessation of hostilities in World War I. This armistice, signed in a railway carriage in France's Compiègne forest, was a temporary pause, a chance for the warring nations to step back from the precipice of destruction and seek a more permanent resolution. This came in the form of the Treaty of Versailles, signed the following year. The Treaty of Versailles was a complex and contentious document. It placed full blame for the war on Germany and Austria-Hungary, the Central Powers, and imposed heavy reparations and territorial losses on them. This punitive approach sowed the seeds of resentment and discontent in these nations, a bitter harvest that would bear its deadly fruit just 2 decades later. But the end of the war was not just about treaties and blame. It was about the world trying to heal from the unprecedented damage it had suffered. Empires crumbled, new nations were born, and the map of the world was redrawn. Societies across the globe grappled with the loss of a generation of young men, and women stepped into roles previously denied to them, forever changing the social fabric. Yet the world was also grappling with a darker legacy. The technological advancements that had been harnessed for destruction during the war would not be forgotten. The lessons learned in the trenches, in the air, and at sea would be carried forward, setting the stage for the even more devastating conflict to come. World War I, the war to end all wars, ironically,